website right now and download my free course on alternate picking mastery. It contains 5 essential exercises that will take you to alternate picking mastery faster than you can imagine. And then I've included my method of how to lay out a practice plan in just 1 to 2 minutes that will absolutely boost your results like nothing you ever tried before. So go download it right now. It's free. I was just playing Ionian, then I was playing Aeolian, and many people have asked me, how do you seem so confident when you go from mode to mode? It seems so easy, or like that's just but actually, I'm using a system that I made up because I was faced with no system. Because we've been talking about modes, and we have 3 ways of learning them. We can use pentatonics, we can use our ear, and we can use the actual arpeggio. And if you haven't watched those videos, you might want to go and do so. And I should say that this video is part of a little mini course on different areas of guitar playing that has tabs with it and charts. So I recommend that you go to guitarmastery.net and register and just sign up for this free course. And listen to or watch the video there so you have the tabs and the charts nearby when I explain these things. But this is the most advanced, out of this world way of learning modes. And you're always playing a mode. When you're playing like the blues scale and you're in the blues rock contest, you're using the blues scale and the Dorian. So you're playing the Dorian mode basically with that bluesy feel on it. When you're playing melodic rock and you have the A minor chord in the background and you're using your A natural minor scale, maybe some classical arpeggios there, sweep picking, then you're playing natural minor, but that's the same thing. That if you're keeping the A minor in the background, that's the Aeolian mode, right? So you're always using mode. So the best thing you can ask yourself when it comes to improvisation and tools, the actual tools you use, is, do I really master the modes I'm playing when I'm playing? And the system I'm going to describe to you now, you can just run with it and take it. I've put this down into the biggest program I ever created, training system. But you don't have to think about that. You just have to understand what I'm telling you here, and then you can start practicing this. But so I was faced with that. You want to learn modes, and you realize that a mode is the sound you hear when you have that chord in the background. From the diatonic scale, the major minor scale, whatever. And if you want to play that mode, you want to play the scale, and then you want to emphasize or put your focus on the notes of the chord in the background. If you do that, you don't even have to have the chord in the background. You can hear that this... That's the Ionian mode. And you can also hear that if I shift to the Aeolian. You can hear a totally different sound, right? Because I'm emphasizing the notes of the chord. How can I do this so confidently? Well, this is the system. First off, let me just describe the confusion I had getting into this, because I was told, to use the cage shapes, right? Which is basically the diatonic scale separated up into 5 different very vertical shapes. It's a cool system. It focuses on economy of movement, of not moving your fingers very much. It comes from the classical realm where we want to have economy of movement so we can play as accurately as possible. So we divide it up into 5 shapes. And then we have the 3-note per string scale shapes, which requires you to do 2 whole tones on 1 string suddenly. And you have 7 of those while you only have 5 cage shapes. So it seems that the cage shape is a pretty cool system, right? But the only thing that's bad or inefficient about it is if you want to sequence it. It's not a system, the cage shapes. It's just separating the scale up into 5 different shapes based on the fact that you want to play as vertical as possible and move as little as possible. I don't care about moving. I want to have a system, because a system allows me to play a sequence like... with the exact same number of notes on all strings. So instead of having 3 notes then, and then I have 2 notes, and then 3 notes, I get to have 3 notes, and I can take any sequence and have the same picking pattern running all the way through the strings. If I have to play the same sequence in a diatonic shape, my picking changes because suddenly I have 2 notes on one string and not 3. I hope that makes sense. So I'm all into systems because it reduces the amount of time I have to practice. And another really important point, it takes something that I learn in one area and I can just expand it and use it in any area. Like the picking, for instance. If I can learn the picking in one shape for this sequence, then I can do the picking in any shape because it's exactly the same, right? So that reduces learning time immensely, technically. And it allows me to play faster. I can get to that point where I am proficient faster because there's less to learn. And it's not about, you don't have to be a speed devil to want to do this. It's just a matter of getting there faster so you can have more fun sooner, right? Life is short. So when you look at the cage shapes and you then try to create arpeggios, because there are 7 different arpeggios within that major scale, right? Or that minor scale, same thing. Diatonic scale is the collective name for it. 7 different arpeggios. So if I take the first cage shape and I have to learn all the arpeggio shapes of that, and within that shape, there are 7 different visually unique patterns. Right? And as the cage shape, it doesn't have any system to it. So I have 2 notes first to the C major 7th arpeggio, then 2 notes on the next string, then 2 notes, then 1, and then 2 on the top string there. If I'm to find all the notes within that cage shape that belong to the C major 7th arpeggio. If I do the same thing for the same shape with the next chord in the row, the D minor 7th arpeggio, then I get 2 notes on the first, then 1 on the next string, then 2, then 2, then 1, then 2. No system. Random amount of notes on each string. That's okay, right? It's not wrong. It's just, it's not a system, right? It's not systematic. So, and if you do that with all the arpeggios, 7 arpeggios, you get a uniquely different shape for each arpeggio. You go to the second cage shape of the C major scale. Then you have 7 new arpeggio shapes. C major 7th looks in a new way. D minor 7th looks in a new way. And so it is with all of them. So now we have 14 different arpeggio shapes, then 21 in the next shape, right? Then 28 and so on. Oh, it's 20. Yeah, 28, right? So you get a lot of different shapes, like you have a lot of different chord shapes down here. So we're used to that, right? And that's okay. You can just go ahead and learn them and memorize them. So now you can target all chord notes in these 5 different cage shapes if you want. That's one way of learning it. I almost called it a system, but it's not, right? It's just a way of chopping things up so you can learn them in little groups, each cage shape. But that wasn't good enough for me because I knew that if I had to sequence these arpeggios, like play like 4 notes down, I would have to not only move my left hand in a unique way each and every time I played that same sequence, I would also have to pick in a uniquely different way each and every time I played down that sequence in that arpeggio shape. So 7 different picking patterns, 7 different fretting patterns for my fingers to move in for each of these. And I want to learn a lot of sequences, right? So I can do a lot of different cool arpeggio stuff, right? And I want to mix these arpeggios with scale notes as well. And I can't do that in any systematic way in this way. So I came up with a system of my own that I call Modal Mastery. And that is the biggest program, the biggest course I ever created, because it's a training system for how to take what I call, or what is, 2-1-2 shapes instead. So you put down a systematic rule. And as I said, you can run with this. You don't have to go buy anything to use this. I took, instead of saying, okay, the arpeggio shapes has to follow the cage shapes, I said, just forget about the scale shapes. I'm just going to lay out my arpeggio shapes. So I have 2 notes on the first string. So the first 2 notes of any arpeggio, I put those on the first string. Then I put the next note on the lonely string there, the next, so I have 1 note on the next string. Then I take the next 2 notes of the arpeggio and put them on the same string. So I get 2 notes on the next string. Then 1, then 2. And And I get these very predictable shapes. So now if I lay out, and of course if I move it up, I get different shapes as I move this, play the same arpeggio. And suddenly I can play sequencing like, right? Suddenly it's predictable. I'm playing the same thing with my fingers almost, but I'm playing the same picking exactly no matter what arpeggio I'm playing. So I really reduce my technical learning time enormously, right? And I have a predictable system. I can, right? And I've never seen anybody teach this because it seems like such a daunting task learning all these arpeggio shapes. But I can tell you, if you just learn the shapes of the C major 7th arpeggio, in one position, you have more power than most people have across the fretboard. So it's a big system if you lay the arpeggios out like this, but it just gives you, for each little chunk you take off it in the modes you normally play, because you don't have to learn all 7 modes if you never use them. If you're into jazz, by all means, go for it. But if you play rock music, you might want to learn the Aeolian and the Dorian and the Ionian, right? 3 modes with these arpeggio shapes, with the 2-1-2 shapes. And that's it. And that gives you immense power, because the next step we then take is say, can I really learn to play fast sequences that involves both the chord notes and the scale notes in a way that sounds modal? So I can actually reproduce the sound of the Ionian mode, playing both scale notes and arpeggio notes, and I play like a fast run? How do I do that? Right? Right? Is that possible? And as you saw, it's possible, because what I do with these 2-1-2 shapes then is that I take every single time I have 2 notes on one string. I say, okay, what's the scale note in between these notes? And I add that. Then I leave the lonely note on the one string, and I take the next string where I have 2 notes, and I put in a scale note. So I went from having, like, let's say this is the A minor 7th arpeggio. And I'm playing it in exactly the same way as the minor 7th arpeggio, or the major 7th arpeggio. Same, number of notes on each string. But if I take a scale note in here, whenever I have 2 notes, then suddenly I have 3 notes instead of 2. So now I have a 3-1-3 shape. And now it doesn't really sound like an arpeggio anymore. Now it sounds like an actual mode, because let me just play that A minor in the background. So let's reproduce the Aeolian sound. And I get a new scale note, type of note, extension to the chord, depending on what 2-1-2 shape I'm in, where I'm playing. That's down here. Right up here. And because it's so systematically laid out, I can play the same phrase using exactly the same number of notes on each string, but I can play it in 3 different positions and get a new melody, like, right? That's one of the, that's an A minor 7th arpeggio with the added scale notes in between. Let me play that in the next position. Right? It just opens up the whole fretboard. And as I said, you can just learn a couple of shapes in a couple of positions on the neck, and you really have just total power in that area. Then you can expand, learning another shape. You can do the crazy arpeggio sequencing because you have these very systematic shapes here. Hear that? That's the Mixolydian mode. Right. It just comes out Mixolydian because you take these 2-1-2 shapes and you mix them together, put in the scale notes, and suddenly you're just playing the freaking scale. You're just moving your hands through the scale, but it all sounds Mixolydian. It's just the most. Right? So it just works like crazy. So what do you do with all this? Well, go to the guitarmastery.net page, download the charts here, play around with it, see what you can do with it. I'm just going to include a little sequence, a layout of one of these arpeggios, so you can start really, hearing what this could do for you. Because the last point here is that when you have something as systematic as this, you can start doing all kinds of stuff with just one of these arpeggio shapes. You can start learning sequences, fast sequences like, let me see. Right? And you can start, doing all kinds of stuff with it. And you can apply anything you learn to all of the arpeggio shapes directly, right? Because it's the same system, right? I hope this makes sense. And so go check out the lesson on guitarmastery.net. Sign up, and there'll be other lessons added on to that. So you'll have, a whole bunch of lessons with tabs and charts supporting it. Subscribe for more free videos. Do it. Do it now. Do it.